Algebra 2, Lesson 14, equation of a line through 2 points, and equation of a line with a given slope. So if you remember, I think it was on Lesson 10 or 11 a few days ago, I was talking about how we would eventually start using slope formula, and we would be using math to find our slope instead of drawing triangles on our graphs, and this is that day. So if you look at practice A on Lesson 14, the first thing they ask us to do is find the equation of the line that passes through -2, 4, and 3, -1. So, if you remember, I'm going to go ahead and write those 2 points down up here so we don't have to keep moving the camera back and forth. So we got -2, 4, and 3, -1. Okay, so if you remember, the equation of our line is y equals mx plus b. We don't have any graph to look at, so we can't figure out our b very quickly by finding our y-intercept. And then if we have no graph to find b or line to look at, how can we find our slope? Well, we're going to use slope formula. So if you remember, slope equals the rise over the run, and then the slope formula is x2 minus x1 over, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I got this backwards. Slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 because it's rise over run. So what this means is if we have 2 points of a line, we can plug in our x1, x2, y1, y2 values into this equation and get a good answer for the slope. So let's go ahead and do that. If we take y2, which is -1, and we write that instead of y -2, we've got -1 minus 4 over 3 minus -2. So we've substituted our y's and our x values, and this could actually be written the other way around. You could also do y1 minus y2. You just have to make sure that if these two numbers are in front, then these two numbers are in back. So your x and y pairs should line up vertically. You can't have this x with that y or vice versa. So we go ahead and solve this. -1 minus 4 or plus -4 is going to give us -5. Then the denominator, 3 minus -2, 2 negatives make a positive, 3 plus +2 is just 5. So 5 over 5 gives us 1, and then the negative makes it -1. So our slope is equal to -1. So now we know y equals -1 times x plus b. Well, now we're not done because we don't have our b, and we can't graph without a b either. So what we do is we just pick one of these points, we plug it into this equation, and then solve for b. So we'll go ahead and use the first one. If y equals 4 and x equals -2, we should be able to solve for b. We just multiply here, that gives us a +2, so 2 plus b is going to equal 4. Subtract 2 from each side, and then we get b equals +2. So we take that value, we're going to put it back up here into our equation, and then our final equation is going to be y equals -1x plus 2, and we've got the equation of our line. So through using slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and our power of substitution, we can find the equation of our line. Now lastly, this second example, they say find the equation of a line that passes through -3, 6 and has a slope of -2, 3. Well, this is a little bit easier because we've only got 1 point, but they did give us the slope. So if we, why is this so blurry? Hold on. What's going on here? All right. So it passes through -3, 6 and has a slope of -2/3. So since we already know our slope, we don't have to use the slope formula. We can just go ahead and start using substitution to plug into the equation. So with our given slope, we can write y equals -2/3 x plus b, and then they give us the points -3, 6. So we'll substitute those in here. Instead of writing y, I'm going to write 6. Instead of writing x, I'm going to write -3. and then b is still unknown. So from here we just multiply our x and our slope. That will give us negative 6 over negative 3. Those two negatives will cancel and become positives. So we just get 6 over 3, which equals 2. So then we've got 2 plus b is equal to 6 over here on this side. Let's write this a little bit neater. So 6 equals 2 plus b. Subtract 2 from each side. That cancels. And we get 4 equals b. And we go all the way back up here and plug that into that equation. So that becomes y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. And that is our final equation.